I've done it so many times where I've started a conversation with someone and been like, "Fuck, I should have recorded that." And you can set it up so it automatically starts recording from the start, but I never do, and I don't know why I do. I think because I think some people are a bit like, "Oh shit, can't say anything."
Need to warm up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I always think it's quite nice to have a bit of a chat beforehand, anyway. And then I'm basically like, "Fuck, I should have started it like 5 minutes ago."
Yeah.
Which is standard. Every single episode seems to be the same, and I am fine with that. So, are you in what part of London are you in?
I'm in East London. Basically, we moved. We're very close to the Olympic Park, which works really great because quick access to Essex, Epping Forest, quick access to the Olympic Park as well. Very fast to go into London. So, yeah, I love East London. I'm not gonna go anywhere else.
I mean, I lived in Shoreditch. I lived in Greenwich for 3 years, and then I moved to Shoreditch, and I lived in Shoreditch for 9 years, and I lived a 5 minute walk from Old Street Roundabout,
Yeah.
which was really cool, but tiny. Hence, I was in that mindset of going, do you know what? I can't financially make London work. I don't need to be in London. I think I'd kind of got a bit fed up with cities and city life. And, I didn't grow up in a city. I grew up in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. So for me, it was kind of like, oh, actually, maybe moving to the countryside is a good idea. And then,
Yeah.
you get that access to space. Like I went for a ride this morning and went off up into the Peak District. And for me, from my front door to the Peak District boundary is like 5 kilometers, if that.
Yeah.
But that's the boundary. You're kind of in the middle of nowhere way before that. That's just where the big round stone is that says Peak District. And every time I look at it, I think that could fall over and that'd be really heavy. And that's basic. And to me, it's like I start the ride the same bit every single time, which is riding up this hill called Thorncliffe Bank. And I regret it every time. But then I get to the top and I'm like, this is exactly what I do this bit. And it's it's about 7 kilometers and it's got like 26% spikes in it.
Off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the average gradient's still it's like 8% or something. So it's quite bumpy. And then just every now and then she goes,
a kick. Yeah.
Yeah. And get to the top, sweating my eyeballs out, and the view, which looks out across the Roaches. And if anyone knows the Roaches, it's like this beautiful, like rock formation thing, like on the side of the Peak District. Looks like the back of a dinosaur's back or something like that. It's quite cool. And I get to the top and it looks over at the Roaches. It's normally windy, but it's also normally a tailwind in the direction that I go. And I'm like, that's exactly why I cycled up that bit. And instantly I'm like, I don't regret it at all. But we have today someone way more interesting, in my opinion, than me, which is you, Caroline. You've done things that I can only ever be envious of. And I mean that in the nicest, most like humbling way. That I think what you've done is incredible, what you did for your husband. So if anyone doesn't know, Caroline and her husband cycled around the world.
Yeah. During the pandemic as well, which is always like the side funny thing of it.
During a pandemic, and did it in 6 months?
Yeah, we did it in 200 days, basically. I think, or 205 maybe. Yeah.
And did it all carrying, pretty much I would say almost all of it was off your own steam, carrying everything yourself. Yeah. And what made it even, it's fantastic to follow across social media, and why I enjoyed following it was the rants, the fallouts, the hissy fits, the French swearing, like all of it combined just made it very real, which is lovely. Like there was no bullshit. It was genuine. And obviously everything on social media is to an extent scripted and, people choose what they want to share. But I have so much respect for the pair of you for actually sharing. I admit probably not all of the shit, but you shared quite a lot of the shit bits as well.
A lot, yeah. We kind of wanted to keep it real. I just find it a bit weird when it's just always happy days and always beautiful. And There's just people sometimes, and we've seen a few people like this, and I'm super grateful because it's really inspiring as well. But, sometimes we will be in the US in some national parks, and then we'll see some cyclists or some clearly influencers, stopping, filming, making everything really nice. And obviously the end result is like art, right? The end result is beautiful and it's great. But we're like, well, clearly we don't have the time to do that, all the talent. So we're just going to ride our bikes and then take stuff on the phone and just, show people what it's really like to ride your bike every day, because you're not going to look great. You're not going to feel great. It's going to be a lot of funny moments, great moments, and also terrible ones. So yeah, we try to stay, who we are, and just kept on sharing it.
And you also, I mean, this is not in a bad way as well, but you had some shit weather.
Yeah, we've been very, very unlucky with the weather.
It felt like the bad weather followed you for the whole thing.
Yeah, so the thing is when you cycle around, so we did it because, what do you define cycling around the world, right? It's not necessarily something that's really clear for everyone. Does it mean cycling through every country? Does it mean just going in one circle? So what we decided to do was to follow the Guinness World Record rules. And one of the rules is you can only go from one direction. So it needs to be only east to west or west to east. And most people generally go west to east because this is how you get most favorable winds. And the problems like what we didn't consider is that most people mostly stay basically in the northern hemisphere. And due to the pandemic, we couldn't really do that, which in a way was really cool because we got to go to South America and Africa, which a lot of people don't do, which is a pity. But that meant we had so much headwind, like so much of it. And then there was also just bad luck. Like we were supposed to have from Coos Bay down, from Oregon down, we were supposed to have a spanking tailwind, and we had horrible headwind. And we had what they call a river storm, which never happens. After 6 months, no rain in LA and California. We had the worst rain in like a decade. Yeah, I mean, and same thing. Africa was literally a headwind the whole way from Cape Town all the way up to Mombasa, just nonstop. And then obviously, Australia, like we had it all. It was so funny because when we were in Australia, David decided we listened to a lot of audiobooks, and he decided to listen to the audiobook by, what's his name? The guy who cycled in 80 days.
Mark Beaumont.
Yeah, Mark Beaumont. Mark Beaumont, basically, when he arrived in the Nullarbor, David was like, okay, this time he's going to get a headwind as well. There's no reason. Everybody gets a headwind there. And he gets a tailwind. He literally has one day of headwind and it's just tailwind. David was like, oh, fuck that book. I'm not listening to this anymore. He was so angry. It's like, it's not fair. We never I think we had the whole trip. We must have had 5 days of helpful tailwind. And that's it. And you see it because the fastest day we had was 35k an hour. That was in Texas, flat, boom, tailwind.
Yeah.
And then we had one going into LA, and I think one time in Europe, and then I can't even remember the 2 other days. But yeah, that was it. It was just
Australia. There's a lot. I'm very lucky. I've cycled quite a few countries around the world, and Australia is one I have done a lot of because of when Francis and myself rode across it. And fuck that place. That is like. That's part of Australia that we did, which was Perth to Melbourne.
Yeah,
is shit. There's nothing. There's literally nothing, and you're one of the few people that can actually relate to that. That there is nothing on that bit. You just you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
nothing.
No, there is nothing. I mean, you have to really I like some bits of it. And I generally don't mind deserts. Like I love Namibia. I don't really mind the nothingness. The headwind I really mind. Like it was and then the constant giant trucks generally are okay. But then you pass, we discussed it, you pass Iron Knob, and then there's a bit more civilization, and then everybody is literally a knob. Like I don't want to be mean. I'm sure there's a lot of nice Australian, like around Adelaide that was okay, but it's bad. It's just David always got in this video, he was just upset because he was like, okay, either you hit me, right? Or you pretend hit me and then give me like call me a wanker and give me a finger. Like, who are you? Like, what are you trying to prove? Like, just get back in your car. Especially if there's no one around. Like, I don't know why they hate cyclists so much. There's huge roads, and they must lose it when they come to Europe. They must be like, what is this?
I think when we were there, I think generally actually the road trains and the trucks they weren't the biggest issue. It was because I mean the roads in those part of Australia are so straight that you can see for miles and miles and miles, and quite often they'd give you a little toot, and which quite often made you jump anyway. But they would go to the other side of the road if it was clear. That's what we found, and we also found that there was always a gravel bit next to us, and that was our bailout option. That's why we did it on gravel bikes. It was like, okay, this one looks like it's covered a bit close. Let's just get into the gravel bit. It's fine. But the ones that I personally found the worst was people with caravans attached to their cars. And I think a lot of it is that they don't understand how much wider the caravan is than the car. And it comes there were several points where I was like, oh, I could touch that. If I just put my hand to my side, I'm going to touch that as it goes past. But on the flip side, we had like a little, I guess like a road angel man called David the Walrus, who's like an older guy who I think he was German, but had moved to Australia. And we kept seeing him on consecutive days, and he'd always pull over up the road, give us a bottle of water, and he's always like, have some glucose, which was gummy sweets basically. And just give us had a stash of gummy sweets, just give us some gummy sweets. And we bumped into him in like a motel in the middle of nowhere, and he was he was staying there as well, basically, and we had dinner with him and his wife. And he had done like a similar thing, riding around Australia and ridden around Europe, and he just sort of shared all these incredible stories, so he kind of understood it. But unfortunately, there does seem to be a large proportion of not very considerate drivers in Australia. And I agree, the Iron Knob point, that is a genuine place. From there kind of onwards was a bit of a shit show. And the other bit about it was that there's way too many time zones in Australia.
And because you go in that direction as well, you're always losing time, which is very frustrating. You're like, come on. That makes life a bit tricky.
Random half an hour time zones as well. Which don't really exist, but exist in tiny towns. That got quite confusing.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, I mean, we had that trip.
So where was you? I know you've been asked this so many times, but for anyone that doesn't know, where do you think was the best place that you cycled?
So I have different answers to that. I loved a lot of places, so I'm just going to make a list. I really like the Yukon and Canada. As I said, I don't mind empty places, so actually I really like that bit. Is dreadfully cold. I don't recommend anybody camping there unless you have proper equipment, which we didn't, and it was really painful. I absolutely love Bolivia. I thought people were very friendly, a bit shy at first. They're like, I would say the Argentinian for instance, are much more forthcoming, but the Bolivian, once you start talking to them, they're very helpful, very nice. Even if I don't speak a word of Spanish, I literally was just trying to make myself understood and it worked. And of course, it's just the gorgeous landscapes, very safe as well, absolutely no problem. Love Namibia. I would say I would have enjoyed Argentina more if we had stayed on the Highway 40. So that's definitely something that I will do, stay in the Andes. And Namibia, great. I love the people in Zambia. Zambia itself was quite tricky. It's very difficult because it was rainy season, so I didn't enjoy it at all. But the people was just wherever you go, always hello, always hi. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And then I would say, you can't really, I know it sounds stupid, but Europe is really cool for riding bikes. And people go on holiday in Spain and, in northern Italy for a reason. You can't really beat the Alps. You can't really beat Spain when it comes to safety and drivers being very nice. So that's, in terms of safety, I would say Spain was the best. And in terms of riding, just being back southern Germany and going into Italy is just so beautiful. I do love riding a coal. So I think people maybe don't realize
I think people are kind of coming on board with it, but how good Europe is, and also Spain. Oh man, Spain is my favorite country to ride in because it's the drivers are incredible. The road surfaces are incredible. The weather is good. I mean, yes, it's a bit tricky at the moment because they are also going through crazy heat waves and stuff, which is all related to global warming. But like, I've never been to a country and cycled around so much of it, and you just sit there and the drivers are just like, oh, cool, yeah. Cool, we're quite content just sitting behind you. We'll sit here for 20 minutes, it's fine. And so chilled. And some parts of Europe are probably similar, but like I think Spain is the winning country of that.
Amazing. Some bits in the US were good. So because I know a lot of people go to California to ride, and South California is okay. North California is just terrible, except for the national park. But I would say Oregon was an absolute gem. I really discovered Oregon. I mean, obviously, I know it gets rainy there, but it's beautiful. Like the coastline and the greenery you get. I was amazed by Oregon, and people are very chill. It's a very, liberal state. I really, really enjoy Oregon as well. So it would definitely be on top of the list. I regret we couldn't go to Colorado, but that's definitely a future trip for me. It was starting to get too cold already, so we decided not to.
What about the worst places?
So the worst place we have been to the point that I cried and decided to get off the bike that day was I discovered that recently, actually. It was at the very border between Utah and Arizona, and it's a place called Colorado City. And Colorado City, there is actually a documentary on Netflix right now, which is called Be Nice and Obey or something like this. And Colorado City used to be the center for this kind of very weird, it's a Mormon sect. They're not really Mormons, but it's a sect where the guy that obviously owned it was, revealed to be a weird pedophile. I mean, the whole thing. And we were there, and people were horrible to us there. Like the driving so close to us, and I got so very scared, and that made the whole experience terrible. Even if it's a beautiful place, it's just shit. So really dislike that. I didn't really enjoy the southern US state that much. I didn't enjoy it that much. I don't know. It wasn't great for riding bikes. It wasn't bad. It's just not something that I enjoy. Argentina, because we had to go again west to east, we had to go across Argentina, and it's not meant for cycling. So that was very, very dangerous. We ended up doing a lot of gravel, which was very uncomfortable for several days. So that wasn't great.
And obviously slower as well.
And very slow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think anything else. I mean, Africa in itself was a great experience, so I have no regrets going, but a lot of it was, when you do day in, day out 200K, it starts to get very, very difficult, mostly because it's just so hard to get anything done. And you say, I just want to sit down here. Do you have food? And they tell you yes. And then nothing happens. Say, okay, what did you have? And say, actually, we have no food anymore. So, okay, you just told me you did. And then you have to, it's always a bit of haggle and fighting. And it's just I just want to have food. I just want to eat. I just want to sleep. And it's fine. It's just a different culture. But that did make the whole riding quite tricky. I think if you go, and we met some other bikepackers on the way, and then they were doing, say, 80 kilometers a day, enjoying themselves, had proper camping equipment with them, then it's completely different. And they also spend more time talking with the locals because they had that kind of time with them. Then it's a bit different. But for this kind of like ultra going, it was really hard at times. And it was a rainy season. So that made it.
How wet is the rainy season there? Is it like proper?
Yeah, it's intense showers, really, really intense showers. We got a bit scared sometime in Zambia. So we did have to stop and hide, like in a police station, actually. They were very nice. So yeah, no, it does get really, really, really wet in Zambia and Botswana as well. Botswana, the scary bit is when it starts raining like this and it's really, really flat, people tell you need to get off of your bike, get away from metal, go and like just kind of squat somewhere in the grass. So we tend to do that when we could. We've done it in Australia. But in Zambia, we kind of realized, in Botswana, you are in the middle of a national park constantly. You have elephants, you have lions, you have giraffes, like the whole thing. It's that normally they leave you alone if you're riding your bike, except elephants, which can be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But lions will leave you alone. But if you're squatting and you're not moving, then you kind of become a prey. And then at some point it was, sun was setting, big storm. We get off the bike, we do this. And then David is squatting with me there, and you see kind of a pride of lion quite far away. But David's like, I'm not sure we should stand here anymore. I think we should get going because they're getting interested in us. Okay, all right. So you have to choose, like, either being, struck by lightning or be killed by lions. So that's just,
Either.
Yeah. We had some little fields like that in Africa with wild animals. But
yeah, I can't. I mean, where have I been in Africa? I've only been to Tunisia, which is quite westernized.
Yeah.
And that was as a kid on holiday. And then Morocco, which is incredibly westernized. And I've not been to Africa. And it's been like on my radar to go to Africa just to explore. Like
it's definitely, it's such a, the thing is, we forget it's such a huge diverse continent, right? And I mean, I'm same as me, my family, my mom was born in Tunisia. And so in France, we have a lot of relationship with Maghreb. So I've been there quite a bit. But for me, it's a complete different world, right? David spent some time in South Africa as well, and actually, the beauty, as you know, the beauty of traveling by bike is that you see things. It's both fast enough that you see changes really quickly, but also slow enough that you actually really experience them, which you might not have if you were in a car.
Exactly.
And for us, just crossing borders, just the attitude of people, the way they were, the way they looked at us, it was just completely different. And you felt it literally as soon as you crossed the border. When we crossed from Zambia into Tanzania, it's just completely different. All of a sudden there was tuk-tuks everywhere. What is this? And also, even like men were not as I would say as friendly with me as they were, for instance, in Zambia, which was a bit weird. But you feel it right away. And it's worth exploring all those different countries because you realize that we have a very westernized view of how it's kind of all the same. It's a lot of animals, and it's all wild, and people are all like friendly, but like nothing much happens, whatever. And actually, no, it's completely different. It's the same way when you go from Namibia, where there's nothing, desert, and then all of a sudden you're in Botswana and everything's green, and you have life everywhere. It's just it's really interesting to see the difference. In Botswana, you have more animals than you have people. And then Zambia is so densely populated. You can't go anywhere, stop anywhere. Somebody comes to see you right away.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
It's one of the things that I found funny one of the things going back to Australia that I hated about Australia was the amount of roadkill.
Yeah.
And I think
a lot of that.
And I don't think unless there was a way of like capturing that smell, the only way you could ever experience that is to actually smell it firsthand. And it's disgusting. Because
it was really sad. I was really afraid I would never see any live kangaroo. I ended up seeing a few live ones, so I was happy. And it's so funny because before I left, I met with Francis, and Francis was like, "You're gonna see so many dead kangaroos." And every time I saw one dead kangaroo, I thought of Francis. To me, like, I'm very flattered, Caroline.
Yeah, there was I mean, I can imagine in Africa the amount of like wildlife is quite overwhelming at some points. But I was kind of expecting there to be much more in Australia, and in reality, in Australia, there was just a lot of dead shit. Like
there is amazing birds in Australia. I am a bit of a bird watcher. And I have to say, it was a treat for me. It was an absolute treat. And I also absolutely love the Australian magpie, because our magpies sound like horrible hags. Like, magpies in Australia, they have this crazy repertoire of different sounds. And it's just, I really, really loved it. For the birds, Australia is a country for bird lovers. It's just crazy.
Did you get swooped by magpies?
Yeah. Sorry?
Did you get swooped by magpies?
So what do you mean by swooped?
So you might not have, what in terms of like timing of the year, you might have missed their season, but there's a point
you got attacked
where they attack.
No, I didn't. We didn't get that. We were lucky.
Hit the helmet. Like
Really?
I got attacked several times. Yeah, they go straight for the helmet, like as hard as they
I
can.
haven't had that. No.
Yeah, maybe the first one happened to me when we would have been between Adelaide and Melbourne. Was the first so it was quite near the end of our trip actually, and then it was quite consistent from then onwards. So whenever we saw them, we would like cycle really, really hard to try and get away from them. But they basically like full on swing down, hit your helmet, like claws out, everything, no fucks given. And apparently it's to do with like mating season, that kind of thing, protecting the young, that sort of thing. But when we rode across, we kept seeing the galahs all over the place, which is why both of us have a galah tattoo.
Yeah.
Because we kept seeing them, and the sort of running joke between us, you try and think of things to look at while you're riding across a freaking massive country, and we was like, oh, that's the boys again. It's our boys, the galahs following us along.
Yeah.
And so we got to Melbourne, and a friend of ours who lives in Melbourne, Leanna, had sorted out for us to get these tattoos done by a friend of hers, and she also got one as well. So I've got one in color. Frances has got like a grayscale galah, and then Leanna's got like an outlined one on her leg. So there's three of the same tattoos in existence around the world. And we were like, they were like the little pick me up while we were riding across when we were feeling a bit shit.
Yeah. Did you see the giant galah parrot they have halfway across Australia?
Yep. I've definitely got a photo of me standing underneath that. And that's
one, and the kangaroo with Vegemite.
Yeah, there's so many of these. So when you're riding across, there's so many of these weird, like little towns that have these giant sculptures. Like they're like, I'm trying to think how big, we're talking 3, 4, 5 stories. They're huge.
They're huge, yeah.
And you've got there's the ones that I could think of off the top of my head is the giant galah, the Vegemite kangaroo. There's a giant lobster or crab, I think, somewhere.
Yeah.
There's definitely more. They're the ones that kind of stick in my head, but like every town had one of some form. I'm surprised I didn't see there must have been a koala one somewhere as well. I didn't see a koala one, didn't see a single koala, so I don't think they're real. I think they're a lie.
Yeah, I was disappointed as well. I didn't see any.
Everyone was like, oh, you'll see koalas when you go out of Adelaide. And I was like,
no.
I didn't see one. I was like, it's a lie, absolute lie. But yeah, I mean, this trip was incredible to follow, and to what you both, how you both showcased and shared it, I think was really incredible. And so please go and check out the stories and stuff that Caroline's posted over time about it, because they're fantastic. It's really lovely, and it's just very genuine and real, and it's nice to see some honesty on something that's fucking epic and fucking hard.
Thank you.
And the other bit, we did this little talk down South Downs Social. That's the right name, isn't it? Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, and it was all sort of about tips of getting into ultra cycling. It's funny because you are way more methodical with it than me, and your thought process on how to do stuff is way better than mine. Mine is very much a fuck it, just do it and see what happens, which is probably, I wouldn't say it's experience, it's more naivety, and that's my attitude of a lot of stuff. It's just fuck it. But equally at the same time, I prepare stuff for months and months and months, and then when it comes into that situation, I'm just fuck it. It's just
I actually think you prepare a lot. I would say you prepare probably more than me, because you have a lot of very specialized knowledge. But I think it's just so part of you that you just don't realize you have this, and you're all right, fuck it, then let's go now and then see what happens. But the thing is, when you show the setup of your bikes and so on, clearly you're not clueless. I think it also comes from experience, right? So because you know what works for you, what doesn't. Unless people ask you, you never really think about it. You're like, oh
yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that, I don't know, it does come down to, there is an element of experience, but I think for example, I'm doing Badlands again this year.
Cool.
I did Badlands last year. I did it on my gravel bike with 650 wheels, which is no problems with that at all. It was great. Bike was fine. The only bit that there's very little I would have changed with that setup, apart from maybe a bigger cassette although I don't think you can actually fit a big. I put a 40 tooth on it, and I'm going to try and see if I can figure out to fit a 42 tooth.
Ooh.
Yes, I don't know if it'll work. But in contrast, this year I'm like, I might just do it on a mountain bike because it'd be so much more fun. It's got suspension, it's more upright, like it's more squidgy.
I mean, you're slower, but you're more comfortable. So actually, you know, are you going to be that much faster with a gravel bike in the end? Because you'll need to rest more, maybe. So
yeah, exactly. It could be an interesting. Well, it'd be interesting to see because having done it on a gravel bike and being able to then do it on a mountain bike to then compare would be quite interesting. And this talk we did was all sort of about like people were asking about tips and advice and opinions and different things we've done, and we were sort of talking about ultra stuff, and it wasn't that long after the Everests, and I was probably still pretty broken from it and definitely still very emotional talking about it, which to be honest I still am. And I mean, this ties in my opinion to three things. No, let's go two things. The race across the UK, the race across France, and well, we sort of covered around the world. And then the last thing, obviously, I'm going to talk about is the Tour de France, because why would I not talk about the Tour de France to a French person? I mean, come on.
I'm always up for that. It's my favorite thing in the world, literally. You know, you talk about recovering. So I was already recovering for the trip. And now the Tour de France is gone, and the Tour de France fan, which prolonged the whole pleasure for like an extra week. And now it's gone. I'm like, oh gosh, I need to mourn that now. So it's fine. Yeah, definitely happy to talk about that.
It was the Tour. Well, let's start with the Tour anyway. The Tour this year, both the men's and the women. I think this year. What
happened? It was so good. You know, I was in the Alps. I was there on stage 11 when kind of like history was made. I can't believe I saw that. And I'm a huge Poggi fan. But to be fair, Jumbo was just like, they played the strategy. It was a masterclass in strategy, what they did this year. I've been so impressed. I still think the best, that's my personal opinion, I still think the best Grand Tour rider is Pogačar. And I think it's amazing that he only actually gave away 3 minutes, considering what happened to his team. Like, they got decimated. And I think there's a lot of like lesson to learn for them this edition, but everything about it. And I think we're just so blessed that we have riders like Wout van Aert, like Pogačar, you know, like, I mean, Mathieu van der Poel, those guys, they're just such puncher, right? And I mean, they're great at climbing, they're great at all the stuff, but they just keep it fresh. There's always fighting, always chasing around. You just never get boring. Well, there's no more like rest days, or there's no more transition stage. It's all in all the time. Oh gosh, that's so best ever. And then Tour de France Femme after that was just absolutely epic. I wish Annemiek wasn't so bloody good, because I'm very one at the end. I was like, come on. But some stuff it was just so emotional, and I've been fighting for it as well since I started cycling. So
I mean, you know, this is one of those situations where I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and the term privilege, and privilege for me as a 30-something white male, I come from a very privileged opinion and stance on a lot of things. The things that were so like really, for me, really kind of like heartwarming and properly, you know, I can't ever understand to the same extent what, as a woman, seeing a women's Tour de France happening is, because I'm not a woman. I can't fully understand it in the same way. I can empathize, but I can't fully understand it. But for me, as a 30-something guy, it was incredible to see there was an element. There's still a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong. There's still a hell of a lot of work to do. Prize money. Let's not even go into that discussion yet. A huge amount to do. Coverage, prize money, sponsors. That's the easy bit. But it's a very good step in the right direction. Yeah. It's a very good step. And for a company like ASO, who are notoriously shit at, well, it appears to be notoriously shit at being progressive, it's a start. It's a start. And, you know, there was a lot of stats that came out about the women's tour that more people watched the women's tour than watched the Giro. the men's Euro.
Oh,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's been incredible. I think for me, I mean, I work in banking, right? So everything's business, everything. Unfortunately, a lot of it is like that. And I think, especially for companies like ASO, that's what it's all about. And I'm just so happy that, people were behind it, people supported it, because now ASO has seen, all right, there's actually money to be made. Because come on, they don't do that out of the goodness of their hearts. That's
they're
just
doing it
not
about
what
money.
They're into, right?
Yeah.
I think the sports director and so on, they definitely believe in the project. I mean, she's absolutely wonderful, but and I think all the people involved in the organization were, but I think the big boss, they were like, you need to make sure they actually work. So the big fear, and I think, and for the all-woman pro peloton as well, was like, we don't want to make it like a 3 weeks event. We don't want to make it that it might get boring. We need to make sure everything happens every day and it's punchy and it's great. And it was, and even on the ground, people were there supporting it. And I think, I mean, I was very lucky that I worked with Donon des Cervélo, which is the French equivalent of International as well. And I remember when I did it in 2020, we did the Tour de France, months before the men at the time, because there was a pandemic. And I remember having Christian Prudhomme, who used to be, and I mean, ASO in general, fighting those girls for many years. They were saying, like, you're not allowed to say Tour de France. You're not allowed to use any words, blah, blah, blah. You can't say anything. He actually came, because it was a Critérium du Dauphiné, he actually came at the start to talk to Claire, with the girl from the Nom des Cervélo, to say, actually, now, I realize what you've been doing is wonderful. Let's work together. And then those girls now continue doing it with the support of ASO, and they have the whole stuff going on the side. It's just so funny how the wheel of time has changed. And for me, as a girl, I think when I was born 1988, right, the last woman to win the Tour de France was Jenny Longo. And it's just, I remember getting into cycling and telling people it's not normal, there's no woman Tour de France, and then going to people that don't even know cycling, like my parents, and my mom realizing and saying, oh, that's weird, why is not a woman Tour de France? They say, well, it's been 30 years, nothing, it just stopped. And and it was also treated properly, right this time. Like the girls had the same type of support the guys get, which is great, because you have to imagine, 30 years ago, there was a woman Tour de France, but very often it was run at the same time as the men. So nobody was watching it. You also meant the hotels were all fully booked by the men team. So the girls had to go in hotels in a completely different city. They were always exhausted. They had no support. They had to do everything themselves. So we are very privileged actually now that we live in very different times. And, and to be able to be a professional as a woman is great in the world of cycling. And
we're starting to see, it's the same with the Euros as well. I read something about the Euros that this is the first women's Euros where pretty much every team, I think it was 80 or 90% of all the players are professional full-time football players. That's great. It's not 100% yet, but it's very, very close. And that's it's momentum. It's a step in the right direction. And we go back to the Tour de France, and you look at when they did I don't think what it's called now, the 1 day nod to women's cycling in previous years, which was I mean it felt insulting as a guy. It felt insulting. So I can't even imagine what it would feel like if you were one of the riders and who was supposed to be riding that. It's just really disrespectful to professional athletes and their skill and talent that they have. And what I think was so exciting about the tour this year was that how in the women's tour, how it was very cleverly planned. So the stages felt like they were progressing and getting harder and harder and harder. And it meant there was the potential that the yellow jersey could change hands every day. But I mean, then you've got Voss, who Voss is boss, she's just so right that she was in the yellow jersey. It's so right. And that she won the green jersey in the end. But it was, you look at Van Vleuten, it was just cool. You're just another level, really. You're just, and how excited she was at the end, which is really beautiful to see. And, there was a mix of different stage winners. There was so much about it that was so exciting to see. And the fact that it felt legit, you had the legit jerseys, you had the legit support cars, the legit helicopters, bands on the side of the road. you know, King of the Mountains climbs. Like it literally felt, I know it was 8 days, but it felt like, right, this is the format we've done for the men's. We're doing exactly the same thing.
No, it was great. I think I would say just two things. First of all, I was happy with the route, but not that happy, because I think if ASO want to ask me next year, they could have spiced up it, because I think actually they put a lot of like Cat 1 and all category at the very end. It would have been nice maybe to not have like 3 all of a sudden, you know, kind of split it a bit across to give maybe a bit more of a fight, and maybe help a bit. Because I felt like DSM and so on, they were going for stage wins and they didn't really try and challenge on the yellow jersey, which would have been interesting. So that maybe for next year, I don't know. And then the other thing I would say, you know, like Van Vleuten and Voss as well. I mean, I don't know what their plan in the carry is, but obviously, you know, they're not like 20. And so they've been doing this for so many years. And they are telling you this and give me goosebumps. Like, I'm just so happy that in their career, they could have the yellow jersey.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. It's just
Well, I think
great.
I don't know for definite, but I think Van Vleuten said she's retiring at the end of the year.
Yeah, I see, and it's only fair. Like she deserved to wear the yellow jersey. It's just because it's so big. It's very hard to explain to people. Some of my colleagues were asking me, you know, why is the Tour de France so important? I say it's just because it's a pinnacle of cycling. It's been there since, you know, beginning of 20th century. It's a Grand Tour. There's nothing like it. It's hard to describe. But as a French person, it's definitely massive.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there's the history and the romance that's happened with the tour over the years, and everything that makes it, from the drug scandals to, you know, the people smoking at the end of stages, the very first races where it was like an ultra distance race. Yeah, exactly. Like there's so much history and stories over the years that have come from it, which makes it so incredible.
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it.
And I was trying to explain to one of my friends, imagine if you had the World Cup, right? But every year, and you could go there for free. Yeah. And you could be so close to your idol. You even have a chance to have like an autograph or to do something, actually really support them.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's just as good as that, but even better.
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard to explain to non-cycling people. And then I think one of the things that's been great over the last, you know, it's 10 years since Bradley Wiggins won the Tour de France, which that in its own right is a nut statistic. Because I remember watching that tour just thinking that, you know, I'm definitely one of those people that was properly inspired by that, 100%. You know, a British winner of the tour. And so I think that's 10 years ago. It's crazy. But, you know, I'm definitely of that generation that sort of got into cycling around then and you know, maybe a bit before the tour. I think I watched it like a bit before that. I always used to like ride mountain bikes and stuff as a kid, and BMX and things like that, but never really followed it as such. And then I started like being like, actually, this is really interesting to watch because it's quite tactical and it's fascinating seeing a team riding for one rider. Yeah. And
you need to get this understanding to fully appreciate it, I think.
Yeah. And then maybe the next few years where there was a dominance of Sky, it was actually quite boring to watch in the men's tour. There's no denying that. It wasn't as exciting as we're now at. And then, you know, that kind of dominance has obviously still, Ineos is still an incredibly strong team. Let's not deny that. But the dominance is not in the same as it was. But also when they were winning the tour, they were only focusing on the tour and not really focusing on any of the one-day races or anything else. So I've always been a huge fan of the classics. I love the classics. So to me, it's like shitty, gritty races. That's how I think of them. And we've now seen this change of like teams, I should say, at the top. Ineos is still very much a top tier team. But then you look at, you know, UAE, who basically probably have the greatest Grand Tour rider of his generation, just does not have the team to support him. And it's not like there's not.
I don't know why I didn't take Almeida to the Tour de France. I'm still not over it. Maybe because I wanted to give him the Giro and the Vuelta. I don't know. But I was like, when I look at the lineup, and I remember because I was riding in Spain, it was February or something, and they announced the lineup. I was like, what is this? No way. Like, already then I told myself it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it's not. The UAE team is not Oh, I mean, they're
They're
very
very good climbers, but
yeah.
just that for me, it was a mistake not to take him. And then, I mean, the whole COVID debacle. So what can you do?
Yeah. And then you look at, I mean, and then you look at Jumbo Visma, which, as you say, like tactically could not have ridden a better race. Even the stage where we had the carnage bike change thing with Jonas riding on, I can't think whose bike it was, but one that was like Jonas rides a 54 and he jumped on a 58 or no, a 60 with all the seat posts and everything.
Yeah, it was quite funny. UAE messed up on that one. They should have pushed way more on this one. They should have gone ruler proper, because I would have taken away a lot of pressure in the mountain. But anyway, we're not going to do a recap of the tour. It's great. And Jonas was amazing as well. So kudos to him.
Incredible for him to win it as a having, you know, had some sort of dealings loosely with Jumbo Visma through Cervélo. He's an incredibly humble, incredibly reserved guy. Who maybe wasn't probably was outwardly came across quite confident, but I think he's actually wasn't as confident.
He doesn't come confident at all, because you can see that in the way he rides. Very often he would be in the peloton and he push people away because he's just so afraid. Like, I don't want to fall. I cannot screw that up. He was just so nervous. He was quite nervous, actually, I thought. But then, you know, I think he came into his own after a while, and especially in the descent with Poggi, where, I mean, Poggi could literally have won the stage in the tour at that point, and he he almost fell off. He stayed really calm, really composed, and he also and to see as well, like, Pogačar is such a good loser. I was listening to Geraint Thomas, podcast, and he was saying, listen, I'm really, really competitive, but I'm not a sore loser. If I lose, I lose. I'm here to have fun. And it's such a good attitude with that. And to see the respect that they have between them. Oh, Jonas is really, really nice guy. Poggi, it's just, I think it's just a wonderful image. And I'm really, really looking forward to, other people discovering it. I think this year, the whole time I was thinking they're going to do a Netflix show about the tour.
Yep.
And Netflix must be like, what has happened? It's perfect. We get the best tour ever for our show. And I'm really excited about this show. I'm excited and worried. Excited because I think maybe it means all the people that don't like cycling right now, especially in Essex where I ride, will discover it and be actually nicer to cyclists. So I think it's going to be great. And hopefully also, push people into cycling, which is always good. At the same time, I'm really scared because there's something very unprofessional about cycling in many ways compared to other sports. I mean, there's still old-fashioned traditions, and the fact that we can all go watch each side of the road without much security and stuff like that. I'm afraid that if it becomes too big, all of a sudden this is all going to change, and it has to. It's what it will evolve. And Jumbo Visma this year, I think, made a demonstration the same way that Team Sky did that at the time, that when you bring professionalism and innovation and you spend time looking at videos, doing strategy, properly doing like football teams or Formula One teams do, then you get results. Like, it's not complicated. If you look at the way Ineos work versus, and no offense, I mean, they have amazing rider, but Movistar, I don't know if you ever watched a documentary about Movistar.
Oh my God.
You're just like, really? It looks like a bunch of unprofessional amateur riders going for a Sunday race. So we'll see how it goes. Like, no.
Yeah, the Movistar documentary was a fascinating insight, or documentaries, because it's a couple of series now, I think.
Yeah.
Fascinating insight into a very long-standing team. I think the longest-standing team at that level in various iterations. And actually how they just didn't have a fucking clue what they're doing half the time.
It's just because it's like, the old recipe has always worked, so let's just keep on going with that until you have somebody that comes and then disturbs everything. It was like Sky when they had the perfect bus, and then the Sky team, like the train and so on, that completely changed. And I think Jumbo Visma as well, it came up this year. Everybody was like, oh, you're never going to do well, trying to get all the jerseys and every 2 liters. And well, we proved you wrong. So
yeah, exactly. And, Jumbo Visma as a team, they haven't, in that iteration, they've not won any leaders' jerseys at the Tour. So, it was massive for the team. Huge thing for the team. And even, think of the sponsors on the side. Like, I was talking to, I ironically have quite a few similar sponsors to Jumbo Visma. And I was talking to Lazer, and the woman at Lazer was in floods of tears at the end of the tour, super emotional about it, and the women's tour as well, because She's Belgian as well, and seeing Wout in the green jersey, and then it's a Belgian company, like it's massive for them, absolutely huge. And similar with Cervélo, like I was lucky to be out for the second rest day, the one that wasn't a transfer day, basically the second rest day with Cervélo, and how hyped up they were as a company about what was happening and how it was all going. And Pog was in yellow at that point, but Wout was in the green, and they were just buzzing. Like, and it's incredible from that seeing it from that perspective as a sponsor as well, and understanding how much they value it and appreciate it. And hopefully,
I think a lot of people are fans, right, in this industry. I think people they don't go in for the money. I think they're probably going because they absolutely love cycling and just
Yeah, it's incredible. And I 100% agree. I think this year it felt like a real changing point for the men's tour, and also a real changing point in people's opinions having a women's tour. And what I mean by that is that we had a men's tour that was attacking every single day. There were no casual days, no easy days. Wout van Aert basically was breakaway king of the tour. Just doing Wout being Wout. And
it was amazing. And he was, stepping down as well when he needed to be like such a great domestique. He brought so much strength to Jonas. He cancelled so many possible attack from Pogacar. Pogacar said there was no point for me attacking there because I knew what Van Aert was ahead. What was I going to do? It's like, they played it so well. That frustrates me because I didn't want Jonas to win, but at the same time, I can only respect it. It's just incredible.
I mean, seeing the green jersey leading the yellow jersey and the white jersey up a mountain.
I've always been a fan of Wout. Like, I always remember him winning on Mont Ventoux. I was just so happy last year. He's an incredible rider. I really like him.
I'm a huge fan, and annoyingly, he is as nice as because we've like talking for like podcast stuff, and he is really, really nice, which is like, how can you be that good on a bike, that good looking, and that nice?
He's good looking too, and he's so tall as well, which is really nice because I'm very tall, and obviously like I'm a bit like fangirling on some of the riders, and I'm like, they're all so short, and then finally when that's my size, and David was like, yes, he's going to leave his wife for you, Caroline. So wow. I'm married too, that's okay.
I mean, it was an incredible tour, it really was.
All been amazing.
And I could talk about it for a long time. I mean, I had to be honest, I normally, the Grand Tours, you've got the Giro, the Tour, the Vuelta, so Italy, France, Spain. And I normally really follow the Giro because I love Italy as well. And then I follow the Tour because it's the Tour. And then I kind of drift off a bit at the Vuelta, which is ridiculous because I love Spain's my favorite country to ride in. So, and I know a lot of the roads they ride on, so I shouldn't drift off. But I think I'm almost slightly Grand Toured out. But I think it could be interesting this year because, is Primoz going to go back again?
No, I don't think he will.
Is Pog going to go and try and win it?
Pog is not going.
He's not?
No. Pog is not going. I think Pog is aiming for the World Championship. That's his goal. He's not doing. So I think Almeida now is going to be the leader for UAE. And I don't think Roglic will because it was his vertebra that are broken. I think he's out. I don't think he's doing it. So we'll see. I think probably Remco Evenepoel is going to be favorite. I don't know if you watch what he has done last weekend, San Sebastian. Just like, what the hell?
Another rider of that, these younger riders that is just sort of.
I'm ready for that. And I'm really sad Egan Bernal got injured. I don't think people are talking about a fight, next year. I think with the extent of his injury, especially because he had back problem before, I don't think next year he will already be back at his very best, but you never know. But I think, if we could have a fight, Pog, Egan Bernal, Evenepoel and Jonas is going to be, and Roglic, hopefully, if he can, avoid injury this time. I'm all up for that. I'm present, coming, watching that anytime. Yeah.
And you just said another what rider that's just, I was just thought about suddenly is Tom Pidcock. What a great Tour de France he had.
Man, it was great. I was on Alpe d'Huez as well. Oh, what the hell? That was absolutely crazy. Riding up Alpe d'Huez. I felt, like what they feel when everybody's pushing you around, throwing stuff. It was great. Yeah, he did a great tour. I think it's absolutely amazing. But there's a lot of riders like that where I'm thinking, he's not a Grand Tour contester. I don't think he could get there, but maybe why not? With time and a bit of development, why not? His descending was just crazy. So
I can't remember. I think he was in the top 20 in the end, which for your first,
no, he did very well. Yeah.
Second in the white jersey, come on,
and Geraint Thomas as well. Time trialing across France, because that's what he did. Right? He was, let's a kid play. I'm just going to keep it safe. I'm going to have my podium, and he did. And
it was great to see him.
He also come back from far, because he had quite a bit of injuries. So
it was great to see G up there, competing on the podium.
Yeah.
And I always think with Geraint Thomas is people maybe don't fully respect how good a rider he is, because he's quite blasé about stuff, but he's a bit like, it's all right.
He pretends to be really relaxed. I'm just going to go for a pint and so on. But ultimately, he's not where he is because, he goes to pints and he doesn't care. He actually is very competitive, right?
Incredible.
And he wants to win. So he did well for himself. And I mean, you have to imagine as well, all the other guys are like 20 and here it comes, they used to watch him on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And and he's also like, he played to his strengths. We know he can time trial. He can time trial damn well. And in those climbs when the kids were attacking, he was just like, cool, I'm just hunkering down. This is the wattage I'm going to ride.
That's my tempo pace the whole way. Yeah.
And he was, the other bit as well with G is that I think it was a bit of obviously I don't know, but I feel like it maybe was a subtle fuck you to Ineos as well.
In what sense?
Because they weren't going to give him a contract, for example. He was given a 1-year contract extension for this season, and I think they'd kind of gone down the route of thinking he was past it and wasn't going to compete. And then I think the reason why he was probably given the contract extension was because Bernal's been, struggling with this injury. Yeah. And so maybe it was a subtle, have a bit of faith in me,
I think he definitely had something to prove this year, that's for sure. I mean, but he did very well with Tour de Suisse and then the Tour, so yeah.
He did great. It's going to be interesting. The other one that's I think is interesting to see, before this tour started, I'm half Manx. Obviously, I'm biased to Mark Cavendish. Mark Cavendish not being in the Tour for me was like a fuck you, Patrick.
Up in the face.
Yeah, it was a proper did not like that, especially after how he won the national champs jersey in a way that no one ever expected. So he's obviously leaving to Koenig Quickstep and going to go to another team. There's lots of rumors going around, but you can see that he's going to go back to the Tour next year and just try to
make a point. Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't he? I mean, I've heard several rumors. I've heard one of the rumors I've heard was EF, be quite cool.
Yeah.
And then the other one I heard was B&B hotels are getting a load of big investment and are talking about potentially taking him on board as well, which also could be quite cool. Because you never know what will end up with a team if they get a load of investment and who the riders they bring in and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think we've got lots of exciting things to go with the Tour next year, and especially with the Tour de Femme as well. It's good. I really hope that progression is made from the last year this year we've just had, and the women's tour is bigger and better, and the men's tour is equally as exciting. And as you say, if we get Remco, Egan, Jonas, Pog, if that ends up being your 4 potential riders to win it, wow, that could be amazing.
And Alaphilippe should be back as well. He always bring a bit of life to the tour as well.
So he's always there for a bit of fun, isn't he?
Yeah.
Loves an attack. Tightens the shoes up, goes.
A lot of panache.
Yeah. I mean, I love him. I love him to pieces, but I always think he's really predictable, because just watch when he tightens his shoes, because that's when he's going to attack.
Yeah.
He goes. And I mean, it's another question if people could stick with him when he attacks, but I always look at it as oh, he's going to attack now. And he does.
For me, it's just too French. He goes with his emotions too much. I see that as a French person, I see it all the time. Like when I watch football as well, you know, something happens and I'm like, oh no, they're going to start losing it now. Because I know like we get emotional and then just we don't have control anymore and we panic and it's just a catastrophe.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to cover with you, which we actually covered loosely when we did this talk, was there's obviously the race across France and race across the UK.
Yeah.
So race across France, you've done that, and you did it on did you do it on like basically a new bike or borrowed bike or something?
Yes, it was just a bit of a joke in a way. I had never done something like that. I was doing long distance, but more like for fun. I didn't even know the word of ultra. And it's a friend of mine that saw an ad basically by this French brand called Heroin bikes. And so, you know, they are looking for people to do this race and they will give them an entry in a bike. Oh, okay, that sounds good. I was getting married as well. Like, so it was just like months before I was getting married, and then a month and a half, and then the race was literally 2 weeks after my wedding. I contacted them and so on, and somehow I got in. And so they were supposed to give me the bike to train with for 2 months. I ended up receiving the bike the day before my wedding, I think. And I remember that because I arrived in Marseille and I told my parents, so I'm driving to this place outside Nice to pick up a bike. And they were like, what? It's your wedding tomorrow. I was like, yes, I know, but that's just as important. So I went to pick up the bike. And then obviously, you know what it is. You receive the bike and there was a lot of things on it that didn't work. I wanted to change the cassette. I wanted to change a lot of stuff. So I brought it to a bike mechanic. At the time, I had not discovered Paradise Cycle, my current mechanic, and they're wonderful guys, but it was other people, which I won't name, and they did a shit job. And they also delivered the bike to me 2 days before the race. So I arrived with this like brand new bike that I'd never been riding with. And obviously I had mechanical issue on, I think it was day 2, which ended up, I always wonder which day it is because I ended up not sleeping. So I finished on top of Mont Ventoux, went on to Nyon. So the first day was probably 300 kilometers. And then the second day I started to ride all Vercors and then the Alps. And I was supposed to sleep. I couldn't because I had this mechanical, which meant I couldn't shift gears. So I had to climb Alpe d'Huez on like the big cassette. And everybody was just like, what the hell is happening? So yeah, and I did all the climbs all the way to Valois, basically, until I could finally find a mobile guy to kind of help me fix the bike. But then by the time, again, I got out of the Alps, I got sick. I thought I could have a better, but there's something I can say about myself. It's very hard to make me abandon a race. It would take a lot of work. So I was sick. Firefighters were called, tried to convince me to stop. I'm like, nah, not stopping. My dad calling me every 5 minutes, you're going to kill us. He actually drove to the checkpoint to meet me overnight. And he tried to stop me again there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he was crying. Can you imagine when you see your dad crying and he begs you to stop? And you're like, no, I've started this. I need to finish it. I was like, oh gosh. And then by the time I arrived in the flat pits in Lyon, my Di2 died. So again, I had to find somebody else to plug it in. A whole mess. Yeah, but anyway, I finished it in 8 days, something. So yeah, it was quite an experience. But the funny thing is, it completely changed my life, that race. Everything. From then on, I was like, I gained a lot of self-confidence and it just opened the world for me. It was just like, this is absolutely brilliant. And I don't pretend to be an ultra racer, you know, because a lot of people do it like so many times a year. And with my job, it's just not compatible. And I try to do like once a year, I do a race, or then I do like 6 months trip. But I really want more people to get introduced to this world, even if it's just to do one race, because it just brought so much to me. And that's why then I came up with the idea for Race Across UK, basically. Which is same format as Race Across France. So you can do either 300 or 500 or 1,000 or 2,500 kilometers. And it's unsupported. You can, the Race Across UK, we don't do it supported. You can do Race Across France supported, but I generally would not encourage it because it's just, I don't know, I think it defeats the purpose a bit. But yeah, so the idea is to have it in the UK. The only thing is also what I want is that it's semi-supported so that you really get something for the money you pay. So it's not just like, here's your map, go. It's okay, you get a really, really good map. You get service at all the checkpoints and you really get support when you need it. So to organize that, coming back from my trip, and with the fact that the team that from Race Across France, they're all based in France, it just makes life very, very difficult. So we wanted to do it in September, but we moved it now to next year. So we'll see how that works. I was supposed to be road captain as well, but because next year I don't really know yet, what my year is looking like, I might just not be road captain. I might just help them organize it and then have somebody else doing the race kind of organizer on the week. But yeah, so that's the idea. And hopefully other people will get to discover how awesome it is to do ultra races. Yeah.
It's nice to see that there's not a lot of events like this in like Race Across the UK in the UK. We've got, especially that's more road focused, there is quite a lot of off-road stuff, whether that's Great British Divide, GB Duro, the GB Divide, I'm sure it's GB Divide, which is on at the moment, which is one that pretty much goes past my front door. So I just go get my head out, all right, and then go back to other stuff.
Oh, give them some food.
You're right there. Do you want anything? Do you think? No.
And some Haribos. No, I can't. I'm not supposed to receive any support. Like some kind of stuff already. I already said, like when we do the race, if people randomly get something offered by a stranger, I would not disqualify them for that. I just find it insane when people, and if people want to take a hotel at their choice, I don't mind. I don't think it's fair maybe to book it ahead, right? For the other riders, especially if it's in a tiny city.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I always find like some of those rules sometimes. I understand why they exist, because you want to allow people maybe that, don't have money. You don't want them to be discriminated against because they can't afford a hotel. But at the same time, especially, I don't know if you have seen, but there has been already 2 accidents on the TCR. A guy died during Race Across France this year, hit by a car. Another guy died during Race Across Italy, again, hit by a car. So I think, if people feel the need to go to a hotel and get some sleep. And I think I don't like it because obviously I have the capacity of not sleeping much, which helps me in those races. But I do think that we're probably going to end up heading towards something like what they did for GP Duro, which is going to be stages in the future. Because if we keep having accident like that, especially it was with experienced rider as well, they might decide that it's just not worth the risk anymore to have people at night on the road. And I don't know, I always feel very safe at night, actually, because I can see the cars very well, but it's just, you never know. All you need is somebody on their phone or drunk. And,
Exactly. It is 9 times out of 10, it's not the cyclist, it's what happens around you that causes the problem.
It's just, I don't know, it's just, that's one of the things as well now. It sounds ridiculous, but I'm not old, but I feel older, and I have more responsibilities right now towards my parents. I care for them in a way. They're not super old yet. Obviously, don't listen to this, but they kind of need me as well. They need to rely on me. I want to become a mom. I'm married. I was telling David, I think the next ultra I'm going to do is going to be a gravel, because I don't want to be in danger of cars. Like if I die, I want it to be because I made a mistake and I fell on a rock. I don't want it because some asshole was driving too close and hit me. I'd just be very upset with that.
See, I've never done, I don't class the national 24s as road ultras. I just class them as riding really hard for 24 hours. I've never done a road ultra.
Yeah.
I've only done off-road ones. I mean, I'm down to do Trans-Pyrenees this year, which is a road one. But there's a toss-up with the off-road stuff as well, because it's a toss-up of if it's some gravel races, which are described as gravel races, are definitely not gravel races, more a mountain bike race. Some gravel races are definitely gravel bike races. And, I won't say which ones and which ones are and aren't, because
just look at who organizes it. So very important. Look at the race organizer. If he likes mountain bikes, don't trust him when he says it's gravel.
You can normally tell, but if you know the race organizers, I'm not going to say anyone or name anyone because they're friends. But there's, let's just say, take note of bike choices I take for races, and tire whip choices, that kind of thing. But and it does quite often come down to the experience of the person that's organising the race and what they believe is rideable, depending on the bike. And quite often routes aren't necessarily tested how they would be in the same situation in a race, with fatigue, lack of sleep, etc. But also my mindset has definitely changed as I've got older. Similarly, that if there's any point that I start to not feel safe, I just stop. I just stop for the night. Like I can ride through the night. I've done that plenty of times. I can, I know what my limits are. But also, if I don't feel safe, I would rather get a good night's sleep, be slightly slower, and still finish. Because ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, the ultra scene has changed so much over the last couple of years. We're seeing loads of, professionals or former professional riders coming into it, and triathletes, cyclists, etc., professional or former professional sports people who've been at the top of their game, now coming into the ultra side, whether they're retiring or just doing it as a bit of a laugh or whatever. And Joe Blogs can't compete with that.
No, definitely not. Or even people that just do that almost full time. Like I have some people that just that's full time. So I think when we discussed that, when we had the stuff, you need to look who you're competing with. Like if I were to go in a race, I'd compete with myself first of all. But if I really wanted to compete with someone, I'd be like, okay, that guy has a full time job. This girl has a full time job. She's done like one race, you've done one race. Okay, those are my competitors, and everybody else, it doesn't really matter because there's no point comparing. It's just, but I never looked at the tracker, so I have no idea what people are doing on a race.
I don't look at the tracker during it.
But in any case, I think for me, the road racing ultra, I just get a bit scared, and that's one of the things when we did the reason we moved as well, Race Across UK, that we went to do a road reconnaissance, and we look at the road and we're like, nah, I don't want people to ride on that. I'm not confident enough. So you need to spend a lot of time to make sure it's safe. And I think also Arno was the guy who helps me organize it, was what happens to him, for an organizer, or somebody dies on your race. It's just horrible because you feel responsible, right? Even if it was nothing he had done, like he's done everything right. But so now you kind of want to see if there's anything we can do to provide like more safety in any way. But
it's like you remember the Indy Pack where Mike Hall died on. Founder of Transcontinental, probably the biggest ultra race going, one of the biggest ultra races going, and he passed away doing the Indy Pack, and the Indy Pack has not happened since. Part of that is going to be who he was. He's a big name in the off-road scene, doing an incredibly hard race against probably at the time the other best ultra racers of that generation of riders. So there's a lot of pressure. There's I know there's been this ongoing inquest about that all, and I honestly I've tried not to look into it because it just kind of upsets me, to be honest. But you're completely right. I think the GB Duro mentality where they start doing it in stages is actually potentially quite a good way of doing it. Could work quite well. It's going to be interesting to see how it evolves and develops, because even in the time that you and I have been involved in it, the changes that have happened on the ultra scene is pretty crazy. It's pretty insane.
As a woman, it's been incredible as well. You see so many more women now, so getting into it and doing it, and actually it's nice because it offers a bit proper competition, right? Because when I did it, I was second woman, but at the same time we were the only two women that finished. So to be fair, I think there was also a woman, but they just couldn't finish my year. But it's just, I feel like it's nice to see that it's getting a bit more. I think that anyway, if that happens, it will completely change the training. In a way, it will make it a way healthier type of racing, because it wouldn't be about like hurting your body. It will be about being fast, really, and being efficient. Then maybe the only situation that we will still have that would be like a 24 hours race or something like this. But I agree with you, like when you're a bit nuts, like you and me, we're like, at 24 hours, fine, no problem. Whatever. Can do that.
It's 36 hours is where it starts to get interesting. 48 is where it gets really interesting, and you start seeing things and you're like, oh, I probably should sleep now. That's my experience anyway.
I like on road, so it's different on gravel, obviously. I like All Point North is quite good for like 1,000 kilometers. It's just right. It's just the right amount of sleep deprivation and speed. It's like they're a good balance. As soon as you get over that, you can't afford to be sleep deprived anymore. There's no way. So I really want to do
All Points North. I've never done it.
It's a nice one. It's nice.
It seems like a good community, and same with the Pan Celtic race. Seems like there's a good community to that as well.
I really enjoy All Point North. I was very unlucky that I did it the year where it was not All Point North because pandemic. So it's like pretty much a race against myself, but I still enjoy doing it. It was nice to discover the UK as well, because being French, it's also one of the things that motivated me to do race across UK, because it was like, people don't know how nice it is to race in the UK, and it's nasty, stingy climb. You have no idea. If you're like French, you're like, oh, there's nothing there. It's absolutely brilliant. And I wanted it to really go through like all of it. I wanted it to go through, well, unfortunately, I had called it Great Britain originally, because obviously it doesn't go to Northern Ireland, but due to specific trademark issues, it has to become Race Across UK, which annoys me because it's not right. That's okay. But I want people to go through Scotland. I want people to, through the Peak District, Lake District, all of it, because it's absolutely brilliant. A bit of Cornwall, a bit of Wales. So yeah, I think the route is designed to be a tourist route. Basically, it's really good. If you like cycling and you like sightseeing, it's a really good route for it. You won't enjoy it because you'll be dead tired, but
you're at least, as you going full circle, as you said quite early on when we were talking about riding around the world. Yeah, cycling allows you to ride at a certain pace where you, even if you are tired, you can actually absorb so much more. You can see, you can hear, you can touch, you can taste, etc. Than if you're in a car and you're going fast enough that actually you can make some ground. Unlike if you were walking, it's a very magical speed that you can do on a bike, and it's something very satisfying that this thing, which is basically a giant kid's toy, is propelling us around the world, the country, wherever it is. It's incredible, really incredible.
I love it. And at least you had a bit of cycling as a kid. I had nothing. I discovered it randomly, right? And I can't believe how many years I missed. Now I want to make sure I want to tell everyone around me about cycling so they don't miss out like I have. It's so funny watching. I always have the tour in the office, when I work and I have like 5 screens, so it's fine. I have one on screen. And when everything was happening, I kind of was turning around and said, why is there no one that watches cycling to me? I need to talk to someone now. It's what's happening. You're not watching it. It's just, anyway. But
I'm going to wrap it there. Thank you so much for your time, Caroline. As always, it's lovely to talk to you. It's lovely to have conversations about bicycle
stuff. Come down to London.
Yeah, I need to.
Hi. Bring your gravel bike. We can go in Epping Forest.
I'm looking at my gravel bike. I'm looking at my gravel bike right now. It's literally, there's 3 gravel bikes there.
Nice.
Well, really I say 3 gravel bikes. One's a mountain bike, so that's a gnarly gravel bike, isn't it? It's basically a gravel bike for gravel bikes. I need to come down. I haven't been to London for a while, and I feel like I'm slightly overdue a visit. Maybe when I'm not preparing for Badlands.
Maybe when my house is finished, so you can actually come and sleep in our guest room if you want. Let's go. Right now it's like it's camping mode for everyone.
It's good practice. Good practice.
Exactly. I'm used to it. After 6 months, it's fine. Yeah, no kitchen, no problem.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and I'll put in links in the descriptions to your social media and stuff, because I think people need to see stuff around the world. So thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.